found this kiss somewhere. And ever since I found it, I've been feeling bad. I don't know who it belongs to. I decided whoever made these things made them prophetically. That's the size and the shape of the pimple you'll get if you eat this thing. Well, Jamie's repented of accusing me of that. I didn't know anything about his old kiss. But he gave it to me. I've been kissed by Jamie. TD's one that had it last night, and now he's getting it again. Well, I'm supposed to go by the book table sometimes late this afternoon and sign the books. Just buy anybody's book and bring them by. I'll sign them. Sign whoever's name you want to on it. Nolan Ryan, anybody, it doesn't matter. There's a good journal being put out, and I am on the editorial board of it and write some stuff in it, but it has some good prophetic stuff. I believe some true kind of prophecy in it. Some wonderful stuff. It's called The Morning Star, put out by Rick Joyner and a bunch of the rest of us. And these journals are out there on the table. I recommend you get it, and you might want to subscribe to it. I encourage you to. Well, there's a today word in it, in teaching and in prophecy. I want to talk to you, and I know you're tired. I'm tired too. In fact, I've been sitting up there promising my body if it just go another hour, I'd give it a rest. Do you ever do that in the morning? Promise you, but if you'll get up, if you'll just get up and move, I'll give you a nap at 1 o'clock. And then at 1 o'clock, of course, you don't ever do it, and your body goes, you lied, you lied. I used to get up early and go to my office and pray. Go to sleep on the desk. Finally realized God didn't make desks for sleeping on. God made beds for sleeping on. I went back to bed. I want to talk to you about just life today. I agree with Betty when she told James, don't say you're going to preach quick. You always wind up preaching long. I'm planning not to even preach. I just want to talk to you a minute. That's a minute. When a preacher says it does not mean 60 seconds. So don't be holding me by that rigid legalistic standard. Being interpreted, that means intended for it to be a short while. Talk to you about life, just a little bit. How then shall we live in these days? I believe these are exciting days. I really do. I know they're traumatic days, but I believe they're exciting. I believe if we could live 150 years, we'd read in Christian history about us. I believe God is getting to do something during this day that is not, the equal of which has not been done since at least the Reformation and maybe the early church. I mean, I really am excited. I'm laid back. I can't help that. But I get excited. Inside, I get excited. My liver, my pancreas, dance. My feet just don't do so good. But for a long time, I felt jilted. I felt like God let me be born in the wrong generation. I mean, I read about all the great ministers of God. Why I couldn't be born then? I'm convinced that I'm born in the greatest generation that's ever lived. You are. I believe God's going to do something through the church in our day that hasn't been done since the early church. And I'm not trying to pump you up. If you don't want to be in on it, you don't have to be. But you can be. That's the great thing. But let me tell you what God's giving. God's just giving life. I just appreciate life. In Him was life, and that life was the light of men. You can tell somebody's got life in them. They light up. You ever around anybody just dark? You look in their eyes and nobody's home. I like to be around people who have life, have light in them. You know why that's true? Because the life of God is light. I like that verse that says the Son let's see, the Lord is a sun and a shield. He gives grace and glory. No good thing does he withhold from those who walk in integrity or with an upright heart, it says. The sun, S-U-N, the sun of righteousness will rise with healing in his wings. Then you get over to Revelation and it says in the center, I love this about the book of Revelation. I don't understand all the stuff in Revelation. Do you? Can I tell you a clue? I read a lot of books on it. They didn't either. Isn't it strange when a person first gets saved, they want to understand the book of Revelation? Have you ever noticed that? You get saved, next week you're in a Bible study on the book of Revelation, trying to figure all that stuff out. Here's what I like about the book of Revelation. It says, in all this revelation, it ought to give you some clue when the name of it is the revelation of Jesus Christ. That ought to give you a clue at how to understand the book. But when John sees all this revelation, he shows everything he sees, all these funny-looking creatures and all this kind of stuff's got symbolism. And then he says, in the center of everything was a lamb. And in there where he was, he said, there's no need of the sun, nor the moon, nor any other kind of light, because the lamb is the light. I will tell you, if you've got darkness inside of you, you just need to get a lamb inside. If you ever receive all that the lamb is, light will just come all over you and get all in you. Jesus said, I came that you might have life and have it abundantly. And I guess my burden today is I'd like to see you living with abundant life. I mean just spontaneous life. As you've already heard through here, that doesn't mean hassle-free, but it means there's a life that endures, that carries you through, that's willing to face the unanswered questions and the unsolved problems and keep on walking, giving an answer for the hope that lies within you. Now, it says that, that life is a gift. Now, here's a great thing about a gift. A gift is something you can't earn, you don't deserve, it's given to you, but gifts have to be opened and used. I was with a pastor several years ago. He's a wonderful fellow, just one of my dear friends. And he got telling me a story one night. He said, let me tell you something really strange happened to us. He said, we were trying to start a bus ministry here, and I was praying and said, oh God, you know we need some money to get this bus ministry started to reach out to these kids. And his little church, you know, and he didn't have much. He said, if we could just have just $1,000 or $2,000 to just get started, it'd be wonderful. He just prayed. He said one day, he said, I thought God had answered my prayers. This guy came by and said, I felt strangely led here, and I have a lot of money, and I thought maybe you could use some of it, and I wondered, what visions do you have in your heart? What is it you want to do? And so this pastor shared with him everything he wanted to do, how he wanted to start this ministry and start that, starting with the bus ministry and reach out. And the guy said, well, I feel impressed. That's right. He said, I want to help. And I'm going to leave you a token of my help. And I'll leave this with you, and then we'll get back together, and I'll give you more, as the Lord directs. So he wrote out a check and handed it to him. Well, the pastor, being humble, folded the check up and put it in his pocket. Didn't look at it or anything. The man went off, and the pastor took the check out and looked at it and felt like he had been mocked. He said, that guy gave me a check for $3. He said, I've never been so disappointed in my life. He said, I thought that was an answer to my prayer. He said, I was so excited. So I opened it, and it's a check for $3. He said, I saved it. I said, let me see it. He pulls it out of the drawer, and the check was written for the amount of $3M. I said, that check's not for $3. Check's for $3,000. That was back when a lot of the businessmen were using M as a symbol for 1,000, not million. Now we put it in million. I guess. I don't think it was a million. I said, do you not know what the M is for? He said, no, what's an M for? I said, a lot of people in finance use M for 1,000. The guy gave you $3,000. I looked at him, and all the blood had drained out of his head. The check was now 2 years old. God gave us abundant life, and some of us left it in the drawer. Don't even know what it's all about. Let me tell you the greatest thing you can do about life. Embrace it. Take it. Some of you keep criticizing your life. You keep saying, I just wish my life was so and so. It's all you got. Okay? I mean, it's all you got. You might as well embrace it, kiss it, take it, and go for it. People have asked me once in a while, does it bother you being bald? I said, do I have an option? I wear a hat all I can. Does it bother you being tall? What do you want me to do? Cut off my feet? So life is to be embraced. We do way too much of other stuff. I mean, just regular old human life's not bad, but Zoe kind of life, the kind of life that God gives, is the very life of Jesus. Isn't it wonderful to have the opportunity to have Jesus' life? Now listen, here's the great news. It has already been deposited in your bosom. You got it. Some of you came here looking for something. Well, I've come to tell you, you already got it if you've got the life of Jesus. Now, what you need to do is see it, embrace it, and let it go. To understand something of the nature of life. I believe that many of us have it bound up in a misunderstanding of what life's all about. Just a couple of things. First of all, I want you to notice this. God's life is delicate. It's a reality that exists in tension between extreme truths. Have you ever noticed that? We in religion always trying to get life reduced down to an understandable formula or to a truth that we can put into a creed or into some kind of theological system. Anytime you do, you kill it. Because life is delicate. It always exists in a tension between two truths. The truth of the sovereignty of God and the responsibility of man. In tension between there is the life of God. You get a guy here who understands sovereignty. He gets wrinkle-browed. Understands the sovereignty of God. Then you get a guy over here who's sold out on the responsibility of man. He's got ulcers inside and outside. Because everything's on his back. And if he doesn't win the world today, he's a failure. And if anybody goes to hell, he feels guilty because he should have told them. I mean, he's living over here with this, trying to get everybody involved. This guy over here saying, don't nobody get involved. God's in charge. And death's on both sides. Life is in the tension between. I believe God's so in charge that it's scary. That's, people say, how can you be laid back? Because I didn't start this deal. And I'm not going to finish this deal. I'm getting to participate on the deal. But I'm getting to participate, so I'm over here on this side too. It's, yes, I've heard a word. I respond to the word. I get to participate. So there's life in me. Somebody says, well, how responsible are you? Totally. I thought God was in charge. He is. How much? Totally. Brother Dudley, I know. But don't bother me because I'm alive. You see, I can't answer that. There's something else about life. Life is rhythmic. Life in balance is rhythmic. I'm just going to tell you a few things. I just did a series on this, and you can get them in the bookstore. Please go get them. Don't expect it to be all that fancily done. I just finished. I don't mean today, but I mean I hadn't had time to get it all done. But there's a 2-part series out there on the balanced life. Go by and get that, and I'll sign that for you if you'll bring it by. You know, we talk about balance. I get a little sick of everybody talking about balance, because a lot of times what we mean by balance is wherever I am. You know, I'm balanced, and everybody to the left of me is liberal, and everybody to the right of me is ultra-conservative. Or sometimes what we mean by balanced is comfortable. Everything must be balanced, upsetting nobody. You know, somebody said the 11th commandment is, thou shalt be balanced, which means you don't ever move out of the center. I don't believe that. What I see balance is, a balanced life is a life in rhythm. God made morning, God made afternoon, God made night, God made winter, God made spring, God made summer, God made fall. A balanced life is being able to embrace all the aspects of life, and there's rhythm in life. Now what happens to us is we get out of rhythm. We get out of rhythm with God's life and get bored or burned out or whatever. You don't have to live that way. The devil's told us a lot of lies about work and rest and play and worship. I don't have time to go through all that, but I will on the tapes, as I said. Any lie that you ever believe puts you in bondage. You know that you shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free. If you believe a lie, you get in bondage. Let me tell you what's got a lot of you. You got abundant life in your bosom, but you're not enjoying it. There's no vibrancy there because you believed a lie about this rhythm stuff. Some of you are messing up with your work. One man said this. He said, we are so messed up that we play at our worship at our work, and work at our play. I think he's right. Some of you are absolutely miserable because you don't like to work. And you've been trying to get into ministry. So you wouldn't have to work, or so your work could have some significance. I'm serious. It's like, oh, Brother Dudley, all I am is just an old businessman out here, just to make it live. I wish I could do some significant work like you guys up there, dealing with the eternal souls of people. Well, it ain't all it's cracked up to be. You say, oh, Brother Dudley, if I could just be around Brother James. Believe me, folks. I'm teasing. Brother James used to say to people, we know when he was mean as a snake, he'd say, now Dudley's my friend and my counselor. And everybody go, you're teaching him how to be like that? He's already eased up and he's nice and everything. He never mentions that I even know him. Now listen, I wouldn't trade what God's told me to do for anything in the world. And the people talk about retiring. I had somebody asked me, I'm not old enough. I mean, good grief. Hurt my feelings. Somebody said, Brother Dudley, have you considered what you're going to do in retirement? Retirement? I'm still looking for my vocation. I mean, how do you retire from life? See, all I do is just live. I mean, seriously. I just live. I would do what I do if I got no pay. I'm telling you the truth. I really would. I don't do it for pay. I mean, it's nice to get paid. Don't hold back the check this week, guys. I'm not. It's nice to get paid, but listen, that's not. I just live, and I don't have compartments to my life. Like, this is my secular life, and this is my business life, this is my family life, and this is my spiritual life, and I have to do this and keep my priorities straight. I just live. And when I get up in the morning, I'm alive and I'm ministering or not ministering, whatever the case. So we got this deal of, well, this work is spiritual and this work is secular. Who told you that? Let me tell you what determines whether it's secular or spiritual. The attitude of the guy doing it. I have preached and it was secular. That wasn't the word they used, but that would fit. And I have slept and it was spiritual. Do you understand what I'm saying? It's the attitude of the person doing it. So we live with some of these common lies. I got to work to make a living. Lie. Came from the world. Tell you where that came from. See, God put us on the earth, gave us the ability to work, to create, to manage, to categorize, to organize, to be a steward. He put all that within man. The fall comes, and now man has to work by the sweat of his brow to earn his bread. Labor came with the fall, but the ability to work came with creation. We have accepted the definition of work that the world's put on us and said, I got to work to make a living. See this little bumper sticker, off to work I go, off to work I go. That's a wonderful way to get up in the morning. I mean, what joy and hope. No wonder you're a thrill. Well, let me ask, what would happen if you walked by the room back here that we meet in before we come out here? You walked by the room, you weren't intending to eavesdrop, but you just kind of heard some of us talking, and you heard Brother James and Brother Jack and me and the rest of these guys. And I said to Brother Doug, pastor, I said, Brother Doug, why do you study every week to get up a good message to give to the people? And he'd say, well, Dudley, man, I need to be a success, you know, and I'm trying to improve my standing business-wise. I'm trying to make more money. I mean, that's the measure of how a man grows and is successful. I'm trying to make more money. If I preach better messages, I get raises. And I make more money, and I'll have more things, and drive better things, and live in better things. So I do that. And then you heard me say to Brother James, James, how do you decide where you go to minister? Well, he said, it's just clear as a bell. Wherever they give the biggest honorariums. Now, what would you think about them? Would you have something in your mind kin to filthy lucre? You say, Brother Dudley, that is a terrible thing to even suggest. I agree. I won't tell you it's no worse than you using that motive for what you work to do. You working just to make more money? Your work becomes your God. Begins ruling your life. You don't work just to make a living. It's a byproduct of it. God came when I was pastoring a church in seminary days, little bitty church, and I was making $5,200 a year, and one of my old friends came by to see me, and he said, it's a real shame about you being in the ministry and all. I said, why? Well, he said, man, you were doing well in college and all, and you had a good mind, and if you'd gone in the right direction, you could be making $80,000 a year right now, junior executive. Said, you could already be making $80,000 a year. I looked at him, I said, man, I don't know. I'm not going to live on $80,000 a year. He said, man, you don't make half that much. I was making $5,200. I said, well, that's true. I didn't make quite that much last year. But I said, I'm working for somebody who promised to pay me whatever I need. What if I needed $100,000? Sure would have been a mess if all I had was $80,000, wouldn't it? Last year I needed $5,200. That's what I made. You said, don't be idealistic. I'm just trying to be real. I'm not trying to get you to live in some fantasy world. There are three major perversions of work listed in the New Testament. There's one in Thessalonians where some folks got so spiritual they wouldn't work. They were living by faith so much, they wouldn't work. They said, Jesus is coming back soon. We're spiritual. We live in the spiritual realm. We hear all kind of things in the spiritual realm. And we ain't working. Paul said, then you don't eat. It's your choice. Laziness comes from a perversion of an understanding of work. If you're lazy, you don't eat. Except you start trusting Big Brother and trying to turn the church into Big Brother. Then there was a perversion in Ephesians about stealing. Some people who had misunderstood the value of work and money and what work did, and so they were stealing. And Paul writes and said, you who stole, steal no more, but rather let him work with his hands that he may have something to give to those that have need. And then in Matthew chapter 6, it says, don't worry and work about all this stuff you're frenzied about trying to get all these things about your needs. Seek first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, all these things shall be added unto you. Now those three perversions ought to give you some insight about what work and rest and faith and play have in your life. God wants us working. But let me tell you something. God wants you working at something that expresses your own creativity. God put creativity in your bosom. He doesn't want you living in any kind of way that suppresses that creativity, a fear of going out and doing what God wants you to do. I ask men this all the time. They say, what do you think God's will for me is? I said, well, let me ask you this question. If you knew you couldn't fail and money was not an object, what would you do for the rest of your life? So many of us don't do what's in our heart to do because we're afraid of failure, can't stand the rejection, can't stand the thoughts of venturing out and not being able to make it, or we're living under a misunderstanding of a provision. Now please hear me, I'm not encouraging you to go out tomorrow and start some big television ministry or whatever. I'm trying to get you to the place where you get a yoke on your neck that's easy and light. Because when you work in the plan of God, when you do what God wants you to do, folks, there will be joy in your heart. You will enjoy doing it. It won't be a labor to you. It's not like I got to go to work and I'll be glad when it gets over. That will not be your attitude. If that's the way you work in the ministry or you work anywhere, you're not much of a representation of Jesus. Now, God commanded us to work. Another lie we believe is if I work harder, I'd get more. That's why we got people working hard, work 24 hours a day. I'm more working. And so, why? Well, of course I need more. And the more you plant, the more you harvest. That generally is true, but it's not an always axiom. Those in Haggai, the book of Haggai, God said, I tell you what you're going to do. You're going to plant, and you're going to harvest and put it into a bag with holes in it. And the more you plant, the less you're going to get. There can come a drought. See, God's in charge of those things too. Let me just tell you something, folks. You can't out-earn your needs. We live in a society that believes that. So we got mama working and daddy working and kids working and everybody's working 3 and 4 jobs and we're trying to out-earn our needs. It could be that you need to come back and find out what you really need. And let me ask you this. Here may be the whole crux of the problem. Would you be willing to live at a lifestyle God provided for you? The old brother, he'll make me move to a tent. I've been young. Now I'm old. I've never seen the righteous forsaken, nor his seed begging bread. Some of you are so anxious to live by faith. Do it. I dare you to trust God. Willing to work. There's no place for somebody who's just lazy, unwilling to work. Willing to work, but doing it out of the creativity of your own heart. And then there's this mentality about work that says, my work makes me important. I've got to work because if I don't work, I'm not significant. So we're looking for jobs that have significance attached to them, rather than doing what's in our heart to do. I was talking to one man who was just working himself there, trying to be an executive and a big deal and wear his 3-piece suits and drive all the right stuff and everything. And I said, listen, man, what do you like to do? He said, I like to work on cars. I like to get grease up under my fingernails. I like that oil to run on my nose. I love it. Why don't you take off your suit and can't be a mechanic. That's not a very sophisticated job. I mean, I wouldn't want to go to church and tell people I'm a mechanic. I need to tell them I'm a CEO. Your work does not make you significant. You make your work significant. You know what? I tell you, my ambitions in life have not been all that great. When I grew up on a farm, and a Coca-Cola truck used to come by, I used to want to be the driver of the Coca-Cola truck. I mean, if you're out there chopping cotton, that's not a bad ambition, just to drive the Coca-Cola truck. And then I'd see the big 18-wheelers come by, you know, and those things, they'd pull that old horn. You know, and I said, I bet that sucker's headed for Chicago. Man, when I get older, I'm going to be a truck driver. Well, when I went to school, first grade, I met a man in our little old school, went to a little consolidated school, and there was a man who was the janitor of the school. I tell you, he was the happiest man. He and I became buddies. We always swapping pocket knives and whatever. That man made being a janitor the highest goal I could possibly think of. I remember thinking when I was in second grade, I want to be a janitor in the school. I want to be like Mr. Skeen. That man, I'm telling you, this is telling you how old I am, but in this little school, we used to oil the floors. Anybody here remember oiling floors? Y'all are old suckers. Listen, he would get a bunch of us boys, and he'd say, okay, boys, now we got to fix all the floors. He would oil, he took so much pride in all those. He said, it has to be done right. I don't want any slick floors. I don't want that stuff bubbling up. I don't want it catching stuff. It's got to be done in a certain way. He'd wait till the temperature got right. We had to do it. I mean, he took pride in it. He made that job seem wonderful. I mean, I thought he was a rocket scientist. Look at the floors. Man, he can make those floors oily. Don't you love somebody like that? I mean, they give significance to their job. They're not looking for a job to give significance to. We got too many people who believe you're only important if you've got some ecclesiastical position. We have constant folks coming by the church going, what position y'all going to give me? I'm gifted, anointed. You want to hear me prophesy? No thanks. Let me show you my list of credentials. They got those credentials. So, okay, what do you want us to give you? Well, I need to be on the team. No. We got to get this out of our mind that we got to be on some kind of ecclesiastical position. You got to have elder, a deacon, or whatever. Call yourself whatever you want to call yourself. Most everybody does anyway. We do what we do because of the life that's in us. So working. Then there's one other, let me mention, there's a bunch of these, a bunch of lies. Let me just mention a few of them. Another lie that we have, and that is, if I don't do my work for God, it won't get done. And folks, I know how wonderful that sounds, and that puts a lot of guilt on folks and get a lot of folks down the aisle. It just ain't so. See, what that does is it leads you into all kind of error and deception. It makes you manipulate folks. It's like, listen, I've got a call on my life to do things for God, and I deserve for you to help me. Come. If it doesn't get done, we'll all be in trouble because I'm the one that's supposed to do this. I'm the only one who can do it. Now, you got to help me. So we tend to use people if we really believe that we're the only one that can get it done. I love what Mordecai said to Esther. You know, there was a plot to kill all the Jews. And she was in position as a queen to stop it. And Mordecai said, listen, you as a queen may have been brought by God to the kingdom for such an hour as this. What a great opportunity. And you could say a word that would deliver our whole nation. But just in case, it's putting too much on your back. I'm paraphrasing a little bit. But just in case you thinking it's too much on you, if you don't do it, God's still going to get done what God's going to get done. You say, well, if I believe that, I wouldn't do nothing. Oh, yes, you would. Out of the joy of participating in God's plan, you would. Folks, you have an opportunity to do something eternal. You have an opportunity to be a part of redemption's plan. You have an opportunity to share eternal values. You have an opportunity to make investments in heaven. I mean, give me a break. What a joy. I don't have to put a bunch of guilt on you. If you don't do it, it ain't going to get done. If you don't help me, we won't get done. It puts you all kind of mess on you. Then there are a bunch of lies about rest. We tend to believe that work is more important than rest. God said, work 6 days, rest one, but he did command you to rest one. It's a command. The major part of that command is keep the Sabbath day, rest. God commanded you to rest. Do you know there are folks sitting right here in front of me who have never physically, outwardly broken a commandment to murder? You've never killed anybody. You've been angry, and so you've broken the commandment in spirit, but you've never killed anybody. Maybe you've never committed adultery outwardly. You've lusted, so you've broken the commandment, but you've never done it outwardly. But I tell you what, I doubt there's a person sitting in front of me who hasn't physically and outwardly broken the command to rest. God said rest. I said, no, I can't rest. I'm too important and too many things to do, and God's kingdom's resting on me and can't rest. And our society puts such a premium on it, we think it's okay. God said rest. What does it mean to rest? Well, does it mean just not work? Well, that's part of it. But I mean some simple things. I'm not trying to give you, your ears picking on you, fixing to give us this great, deep definition of rest. No, I meant solitude, relaxation, quietness. I mean rest. Just rest. Think, well, it's worth less than rest, and other people have this idea about rest. Rest is something you deserve to do when you've done your work well. So you only rest after you have lived, and at 65, now you deserve to rest. Or rest is something that rich people deserve. They can buy it and they can go and get it. Listen, rest is something all of us are supposed to do. It's part of your life. Tell you why some of you don't know God any better than you do. You won't rest. It takes solitude to get with God. You know what I found? It's really, really difficult to hear God in all the buzz of everything that's going on. And solitude is a very difficult place to find. You know what I found? That there's a great wall between me and pure solitude. You know what that wall consists of? It consists of guilt feelings, regret, distractions, accusations, bad memories. I mean, I start to get alone and everything starts coming in my mind. It's like, have you done that? No, I hadn't done that. Well, you should. I know I should have. Well, you remember? Yeah, I remember that. You know how I start? Yeah, I'm sorry. Is a low. Yeah, and you got regrets and guilt and fears and whatever. And most of the time, I get talked out of solitude. It ain't worth it. I just stay busy, keep my mind busy. Yeah, I just keep on doing something, because that way at least I don't have to think about all that stuff. But when I start to get in solitude, if you will stick with it and walk on through your guilt and walk on through your regrets and handle it, walk on through the distractions, and you just say, I'm going in there where God is. You just set your mind to go in there. There comes a time, it's like walking into space. I mean, all of a sudden there's peace. I'm not talking about some kind of Oriental meditation. Now, I'm just talking about just normal solitude. It's peace. All the distractions, all the voices move behind you. And you're in there where God can whisper. And you got it. I tell you, it's worth the trip. Rest. Solitude. We've been trained so much by the world to live out of habits. We don't enjoy the life that God's given us. I was reading in this book by Richard Exley, The Rhythm of Life. He's quoting Erma Bombeck. You ever read Erma Bombeck? Somebody asked me the other day if I had my life to live over, would I change anything? My answer was no, but then I thought about it and changed my mind. Now listen, I know I hate for people to read to me, don't you? I mean, it's a pain for people to read to me. My mother used to read to me when I didn't want her to read to me. It's like she'd be reading something good, and I'd be busy. She'd say, Dad, listen to this. Now I'm busy, and she's reading. My son does it every once in a while. He loves to read. He'll say, Dad, listen to this. Well, I'm doing something else, but he wants me to listen to it and then ask me questions about it. So I apologize for reading to you, but I don't know how else to get it to you. I'm going to read to you, okay? Turn to your neighbor and say, Brother Dudley's going to read to us right now. Listen to him. Don't go to sleep. It's not for sleeping. If I had my life to live over again, I would have waxed less and listened more. I would never have insisted the car windows be rolled up on a summer day because my hair had just been teased and sprayed. I would have invited friends over to dinner, even if the carpet was stained and the sofa faded. I would have eaten popcorn in the good living room and worried less about the dirt when you lit the fireplace. I would have taken time to listen to my grandfather ramble about his youth. I would have burnt the pink candle sculptured like a rose before it melted while being stored. I love that part because we got one of them candles. I've been wanting to light it for years. I left it out in the back room and one of the dogs got it and chewed it up. I thought it was wonderful. I would have sat cross-legged on the lawn with my children and never worried about the grass stains. I would have cried and laughed less while watching television and more while watching real life. I would have eaten less cottage cheese and more ice cream. I would have gone to bed when I was sick instead of pretending the earth would go into a holding pattern if I weren't there for a day. I would never have bought anything just because it was practical, wouldn't show soil, and was guaranteed to last a lifetime. If my child kissed me impetuously, I would never have said, later now, go wash up for dinner. There would have been more I love yous, more I'm sorry, more I'm listening. But mostly, give it another shot at life. I would seize every minute of it, look at it, really see it, try it on, live it, exhaust it, and never give the minute back until there was nothing left of it. That's what I'm talking about. Life itself is precious. And you don't have any idea how precious the life God has given you is, and the opportunity God has given you. And some of you spend your life as a hero worshiper. Folks, you're the hero. Jesus is your hero in you, and you are somebody. I'm telling you, there's ministry inside you. It's wonderful. I tell you, I know I'm getting old because I love to see kids succeed. I do. I mean, I still like to do some things myself, but I'd rather see my son or my daughter do something than me do it. I love to see people in our church get that little glint in their eye. You know, they come by and they go, you know, somebody ought to be doing something for, and they name some deal, and we go, yeah? Well, a church ought to be doing something about it. Yeah? What do you think we ought to do? I don't know. I think the church ought to be doing something. Why don't you see what the church ought to be doing since you're the church? You mean like me? Yeah. We had a lady, is Jackie here? She's been here at night. She's probably working. She's working today. She's resting. We had a lady in our church. We probably already told you a story, but a few years ago she came in to us and she said, somebody ought to do something about the poor folks, right? We got people that are going hungry in these apartments all around here. And we said, that's exactly right. She said, what are we going to do? I said, it's on your heart. What do you want to do? Well, she took that seriously. She asked the Lord about it. She was in the grocery store not long after then and noticed that they had all that produce up there. And she said, I wonder what they do with that produce when the day's over. So she went and asked the man. He said, well, we throw it away. Well, she said, if I could, if I use that for other people and all and wouldn't make profit of it, could I have it? And he said, yeah. So she goes and gets it and starts to distribute it to the poor. And he said, would you like to have the day-old bread? And she said, yeah. Well, what about the bent-up cans? Yeah. Before long, she was feeding, now this is not an exaggeration, we got the figures, thousands of people. I mean, A big part of our church facility is housing the care ministry. And a lot of the people that you see running around there helping work in our care ministry. And they don't have any titles. I tell you, they're excited. Folks almost fight over getting to work in there. And we have several days a week now people come from all the different departments. She's got it organized. To the extent that the Tarrant County Food Bank contacted her and said, you're doing a better job of distributing than we are. Would you be willing to be a branch of our distributing the government stuff? She said, if there are no strings attached, no strings that said, you're getting the job done, go do it. You say, well, where'd y'all get her? She just popped up. She wouldn't mind me telling you this. She's had some tragedies in her life. She's been married 4 times, divorced 4 times. She had a son to die tragically last year. She's had some terrible pain in her life. Has great joy. You know where she buys most of her clothes? Garage sales. We're all the time kidding. I said, Jackie, you look so wonderful. Where'd you get that? Over on Pine Street. What did it cost you? $3.42. She looks wonderful. That's just a for instance. I get a kick out of seeing folks get a glint in their eyes like, yeah, this is my world. I got God's life. And man, there's all kinds of things that can happen. Just exploding from the inside. And not waiting till somebody maps it all out for you and tells you everything that's going to happen. It'd be boring if you did that anyway. Well, I don't have time to talk to you about more about the rest and all that kind of stuff. Let me tell you one of the great joys of life is learning how to catch falling stars. Some of us get so intense and whatever, we forget to catch falling stars. You know, every once in a while, you can't make it happen. Have you ever gone out in the yard and said, I'm going to go watch falling stars? They won't fall. Ever tried to make one fall? You're like, come on now, fall. It's a clear night. I want to see a falling star. It won't fall. But when you're doing something else, all of a sudden, there goes a falling star. You go, yeah, got to see it. God has all kinds of little surprises in life. You got to learn how to capitalize on those. I read something out of a book called Inspirations from a Hair Dryer. Come up here, babe. This is my daughter. Get your shoes on, sweetie. She's resting. This is my daughter, Karis. Karis Lee. Isn't she pretty? God told me what her name was going to be before she ever got here. I was in seminary and I was studying the word charis, which is grace. It means that which is essentially delightful. And then in the New Testament, it began to mean that which is God's character. And God began to talk to me about grace during seminary days and tell me that was the essence of his character was grace. And so I said, if I ever have a daughter, I'm going to name her Charis. So I got one and she is delightful. Anyway, I read this deal and it was so to me. And then I read it to Betsy. I said, let me read you something. And she didn't like me to read to her either. And I read it to Betsy, and later that day she said, where's that article about Charis? See, we so identified the article with Charis because we have a daughter like that. I want to read this to you. How many fathers do we have here? Yeah, you guys, you're fixing to cry. Let's tune, get ready. Let's go ahead and get your deal out. Mamas might too, okay? This is written by Mary Jean Arian from a gift from a hairdryer, it says. As she scrambles out of the Saturday night bath and shampoo, dripping dark green footprints on light green mat, you throw a towel around her head and rub vigorously as she jumps up and down. Mommy, I got goose pimples. Stand still, you say, handing her another towel. Dry yourself while I rub your hair. 5 minutes later, She's pink pajamaed, clean-toothed, and sitting cross-legged on her bed, damp hair going in all directions. She resembles nothing so much as a newly hatched chicken. You perch beside her and plug in the hand-operated hairdryer, pointing it at the nape of her neck. "It's nice and warm," she says, reaching for a book. "I'll read you a story while it dries." "Good," you say, combing from south to north on the back of her head and directing the warm air stream into the moving hair, watching it fall in layers finely as it sifts apart from the damp mass. A horizontal part moves upward following the comb. Over and over again, south to north, hair falling, air blowing. "John and Cindy had a little dog. He was brown and white. His name was Toby." Second grade reading books are fascinating to second graders. And that's as it should be. You find your fascination elsewhere in the way the light falls on the golden brown strands. "Go get the ball, Toby," she reads on. You're trying to decide whether she's really quite beautiful or just ordinary and beloved. Likely not beautiful, but beloved. The comb lifts the hair, bearing a pink ear scrubbed to Saturday night perfection. Something about the pink ear takes you back over the years, and you remember this same head, baby bald as a darning egg. Then came blonde curls. Now no curls, and not any special color, but clean and soft and shining, warm laid on the side of her cheek. "John and Cindy went looking for their dog." You're not listening. Comb and dry, comb and dry. You half close your eyes and pick another memory out of her blowing hair. She was 3 that summer on Cape Cod when the strong sea wind blew the curls up from her neck just like this. You remember how she turned around and suddenly up went the bangs, bearing a white forehead above a sun-pink nose and cheeks. You remember the unbelievable quantity of sand she carried home on her scalp that day to be brushed out on the cottage floor. How little she was then. Now 7. The air current swings her hair suddenly to one side, and she's 5 again, skipping off to her first day at kindergarten. The breeze is undoing all the work of a careful comb as they play through her hair, swaying it like this in rhythm to her skipping. The cadence of her merry gait captures you completely, even now, 2 years later. She coughs you back into Saturday night on the edge of her bed and goes on reading. "The children asked the grocery store man if he had seen Toby." Turn around now, you say. Let's do the other side. It's dry over here. Yes, she is beautiful. You've decided it, and that's that. Comb and dry, comb and dry. "Soon I won't be able to do this anymore," you say to yourself, knowing that that little straight bob must inevitably yield to grown-up coiffures and ugly curlers. What will she be like at 14? Where will her hair be blowing then? And 16, and 18. You suppose boys will love to watch your hair blow as you do now? And some of them will feel it on their faces. And one of them will marry her. And her hair will be perfect under the veil. And there will be her hair spread on his pillow. Oh, you hate him a little. And wonder where he is at this moment and whether he'll be good to her. They will grow old together. The gold brown hair will be gray. You will be gone. And then she will be gone. This very hair that now your fingers smooth. All the tears in the world swim for a second in your eyes as you snatch the plug out of the socket suddenly and gather her into your arms, burying your face into the warm hair as if you could for somehow seal this moment against all time. "Hey, don't you know we're just at the end of the story?" she asks, surprised by your embrace. "Yes, honey, of course." "I peeked ahead. They found their dog. It's a happy story. I knew it would be." She reads the last page. You sing an evening song together. Exchange kisses on each other's noses. turn out the light and go downstairs to finish the ironing as if nothing bittersweet and wonderful had happened. That's a falling star. I read the story and it was a falling star. The moments in life that God gives you that are precious, they're jewels. They're not just with your family, but don't overlook those with your family. And we get so caught up with our kids' problems, we forget just to enjoy them. I can honestly say this girl brings me delight. And she's a teenager. I mean, she's 15, soon to be 16. I mean, it would be good if we could take all teenagers to an island somewhere and leave them for 2 years between. But since you can't, you might as well enjoy them. She's truly a grace in my life. Even with our problems with boyfriends and school and cars she doesn't like and all that stuff. God's got a lot of falling stars in your life. If you can keep the rhythm, stay in the rhythm. God told you, hey, I got work for you. It's my work. Let you be a part of my kingdom. Let you do my job. And rest is a part of it. I command you to rest. And when you're resting, you're as spiritual as when you're working. And play. Play is part of it. If you don't play, you're stupid. Excuse me. You'll burn out. I used to feel guilty when I went hunting, fishing. I just feel guilty now when I can't go. Because ministry is not something I do. Ministry is something I am. You can't be around me long without getting some kind of ministry, good or bad. You go hunting with me, it'll be ministry. Because it's what I am. I'm not working at it. God wants you to live that way. That's part of the abundant life God's given you. The rhythm of life. God has a rhythm, folks. He wants you to get rid of all that other junk. And let life come forth. Embrace it. You'll love it. Love you, baby. Amen.